The truth is, I have no idea who I'll end up being, or being with, what gender preference we choose to call ourselves brave, slipped in our voice when finding that our sexuality may not need any label, knowing we could be nobody other than ourselves. I am still deciding who I am. Still love too hard and too often. I am far from perfect. But it starts with taking the skeletons inside of my closet and burying them. I'm Jarvis D'Angelo Subia. I'm a fifth year at San Francisco State, a creative writing major in the English department. I am the president of Spoken Poetry Expressed by All Kinds Speak, the organization that puts the slam team together. The reason why I slam is because of the competition. I come from an athletic background. I've done sports for most of my life. It challenges not only the competitors within the competition, but the person themselves as an artist to progress their art.
All that was left between us was eye contact.
My parents and I sat separated by the dinner.
CUPSI is the College Union's Poetry Slam Invitational. It's the competition that we get a team to send to every year. It is just a national competition for colleges for slam poetry. For our level, it's the biggest competition there is. The way we prepare is we have a process of putting the slam team together, which is the first part, and that takes the whole entire fall semester. Through that, the poets are writing on their own and developing their poetry just for the finals. Once the finals are over, then we start doing stuff as a team and getting coaching. We spend the first duration of the season writing, trying to get as many new poems as we can out, as many group pieces. After the writing portion is done, we have our performing and crafting and finishing the fine-tuning of stuff. And that is just working on stage presence, what things look like when you're in front of an audience, where to emphasize words. What are the best things you can do on stage to help your message come that much more forward across to an audience rather than just the words? It's the reason why we're up on stage rather than just giving our poems on paper to somebody.
Right, like have you ever seen a political rally happen? The speaker revs up when the audience revs up, and it's this sort of communicative, back and forth kind of communicative exchange where you're not entirely sure who's revving up who, right? It becomes a sort of a Mobius strip, right, where we don't know the beginning or the end of this, right, where we're not entirely sure who's starting it, who's receiving it.
One thing I've developed through slam poetry is just a lot of identity. Things with bisexuality, things with sexuality, things of who Deck Jarvis is. And one of the outlets for this for me personally is being able to write it down on paper, which is something in itself, and externalize these things, these emotions that have just been held in, but also to project them to a group of people who I've never met before, nobody's seen this, nobody knows anything about me, and all of a sudden just give them all this raw emotion. There's something very healing about that. Very streamlines the process of healing and being okay with those things and coming to confront them because you're kind of just putting yourself in this extremely uncomfortable position that the people in their right mind would never want to do, and then making yourself comfortable with that. And after you express all these things you would never tell anybody, these really intimate things about yourself, you're having 5 random people validate you on a number scale of 1 to 10, which can be problematic, don't get me wrong, but it's never about the score. It's always about the poet, always about the poem. Like, we went to one of our competitions the first year, and we had brought up to somebody, we were just like talking to teams, and we're like, yeah, we had to raise money to get here, and they were just really shocked that we had to put in our own efforts to get money, because a lot of these schools don't. They get funded by their arts programs, or their campus just gives them the money to go. So we were the first CSU to attend the competition because Cal State universities don't have the money to fund the arts, and it's one of the really, really unfortunate things about what we're doing is it's not getting seen, and especially on the campus when there's a disconnect between the Poetry Center and the arts here and what we're trying to do. The Poetry Center does work with us, but as the creative writing department, there's still a disconnect between slam poetry and the poetry that's more literary. Like, we're going to the competition with the intention to win, to win first place, not only for a national scale, but for a state itself. We aren't really recognized here as a vital entity in what we do and how important slam poetry is to the arts and is to poetry.
We're so related. We're so related. Okay. So you're Toronto's even out here. Will your